breaking news. Live look, Potomac River, Washington, D.C. Major investigation underway. Plane crash, American Airline Flight 5342. From Wichita, Kansas to Washington at 8:48 p.m. last night. Hit a chopper. Chopper crashed into a Black Hawk chopper, crashed into this plane right before it was about to land. Reagan Airport. We've been covering it all into the middle of the night. This morning, President of the United States, Donald Trump, spoke. J.D. Vance, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, who was just sworn in a little bit before this terrible tragedy happened. Now we have the NTSB ready to speak. There's an investigation. We're talking about the National Transportation Safety Board. It's coming up, and this is a live scene at the river there. This is a recovery. It is no longer a search for anyone alive. And you can see it still going underway, looking for the wreckage. The black boxes have not been recovered. Now, there's a couple websites talking about the latest updates while we wait for the NTSB. There's a few things we want to show you. I believe the press conference is coming up at 2 p.m. Could be 2:45, but a press conference is coming up, and we do want to listen to what they have to say. But in the meantime, we can also play the air traffic control talking to the choppers, the audio, which has been released. We can share that. We can share also Nancy Kerrigan previously spoke. Nancy Kerrigan, figure skater. She spoke. She was in tears, considering that many of the victims, and unfortunately no survivors, a lot of the victims are with the U.S. figure skating. They're figure skaters. So the figure skating community is rocked to the core this morning. Last night when they heard the terrible news. Black boxes from the doomed flight have not yet been recovered. FAA tells lawmakers they have not retrieved the cockpit voice recorder or the flight data recorder, also known as the black boxes. Now, you know the black boxes will share and reveal a lot. It's quite terrifying. Sometimes previous crashes, they release them. You could hear all types of screaming and stuff. It's horrible. I don't know if the victims here knew what was coming, considering they were only a few hundred feet up, ready to land. I think it was just boom, lights out. Because remember, there's also a massive explosion. Because you're talking about a plane landing at about 150 miles an hour, while a helicopter, a Black Hawk, plows into the side about 40, 50 miles an hour, people are saying. I don't think people would know or hear what's coming. Now, what we could do, waiting for this press conference to come up, why don't we play that air traffic control clip, Magnolia, and we can share what was said. Major investigation underway. I believe that they're taking this as if it was a terrible, terrible accident, though Trump, at the press conference, indicated it could be some sort of hirings, and they need to get sharper people behind those controls. Brighter people, smart people, he claims, to run the air traffic control towers. It's interesting. It's interesting. We have yet to know identities of pilots, identities of air traffic control, identities of chain of command at Reagan, identities of the pilots from the Black Hawk. There was 3 personnel, military personnel on that chopper, came from the 12th Aviation Battalion. Still a lot of unknowns. Now, I see the comments. I'm reading the comments. A lot of interesting comments in the chat. Let us know your opinion here on this matter. Yeah, why don't we play the Magnolia? Why don't we play the clip with the audio? We'll play that right now.
9 concept Stone Park, good day. American 3130, slow the funnel. 25, traffic just stopped the Wilson Bridge Security at 1,000 feet, start runway 3.
Scott has a traffic site request visual separation.
This separation group. American 1630, start runway 1 lot, boy, traffic throughout, start runway 33, this traffic 16 off funnel.
Our muscle 7, approaching Springfield, request route 3 to zone 6.
7, stand by. 5307, keep rolling out to November, ground 47, good day. To 1630, one star 32014, go to 5, traffic 2 mile low base, runway 33, no delay, runway 1 clear for immediate takeoff. 70 request.
Route 3 to zone 6.
Most of you say route 3 to zone 6.
Hey, for most
7 approved.
7.
National Tower, good evening. Airfield 1 with you. Signal better.
Medevac Air 1, Washington Tower, National Altimeter 2990. Approved to Washington Class Rover, Space Portland, Sheridan, Fairfax.
0 for Airfield 1, copy.
S25, get the CRJ in flight. S25, F1 is CRJ.
This club has a aircraft in site request visual separation.
Separate. American 472, Washington Tower, 1 star 32017. American 3130, go around, turn left in 250, claim maintain 3000. Go around, turn left in 270, climb maintain 3000. American 472, cancel landing clearance, runway 1 continue.
Washington Tower, Black 3 is at Western, zone 6.
Black 3, zone 6 approved. American 3130, contact Potomac on 118495. American 472, cancel approach clearance, runway 1 continue. American 472, go around, jump left heading 270, climb maintain 3000. American 472, left start heading 270, climb maintain 3000, contact Potomac on 118495.
Your 3130, contact approach on 1895. 472. Target 272, yeah, left turn 280, climb, maintain 3000.
Full tower, Air 1 is landing assured. We'll give you a holler on the way out.
C-5347, go around, climb, maintain 3000, flight present heading for now. 3130, did you try him on 1895? American 3130, contact approach. No, excuse, standby.
Request route 2 to 1. 1
Muscle 13, standby. Black Shack 3, can you return to base?
Black Shack 3.
Black Shack 3, proceed directly to Glebe. I need you to land.
Black Shack 3, proceed.
Fairfax 1, I need you to land immediately.
Fairfax 1, understand, landing immediately. Looking for a field.
Top 6, go ahead. Six, Bruce, question. Muscle 7, tower. You land immediately. Can you go to Dulles for a few minutes?
Muscle 7, roger. On our way.
Muscle 7, proceed due westbound. Contact Dulles Tower 120.1.
120.1 for Muscle 7, proceeding west.
Muscle 13, can you go to Baltimore?
Muscle 13, I'll take route 3. Clock.
C-5347, turn right heading 0, Harrison, Blue C-5347, turn right heading 120.
National Tower, Fairfax 1, be land assured.
Say again.
Assured.
We'll show everything close. C-5347, let's make a hard right turn 180. No, right now, stand by. Air Care 1, are you landing? Air 1 tower. Blue Street 5347, let's make it a 1-2, so I'm back on the 120, heading contact approach on 125.65. So 7, you guys with me? So Air Care 1 tower.
Sounds like there was different air traffic control during the handle of that. I heard multiple different voices. So I think as the investigation proceeds, we're going to understand more a little bit about that air traffic control, the congestion around Reagan Airport. Now, the NTSB is going to speak shortly. I'm waiting to see a press conference. Apparently, it's going to happen soon. Might be 2 o'clock, might be 2:45. There's some conflicting, but we're at the top. We're at 2 o'clock Eastern. Welcome aboard. The NTSB is an independent U.S. government investigative agency responsible for civil transportation accident investigation. In this role, the NTSB investigates and reports on aviation accidents and incidents, certain types of highway crashes, ship and marine accidents, pipeline incidents, bridge failures, and railroad accidents. In this case, an air crash. The NTSB is also in charge of investigating cases of hazardous materials release during the transportation. The agency is based in Washington, D.C., with field offices in Anchorage, Alaska, Aurora, Colorado, and Federal Way, Washington. This is an agency formed 1967. Annual budget, $145 million, 2024. Employees, 437 people. Not a really big agency considering the ballooning federal government. but 437 employees as of 2024 with a $145 million budget. I thought their budget would be higher. An independent investigative agency. Now we also have, while we wait for NTSB, Nancy Kerrigan. Remember her? Tanya Harding? The big 1994 scandal, figure skating. Her knee hit a plot to take her out. She speaks. And a bunch of other people surrounded her at an ice skating rink. So we're going to get that up shortly when it becomes available. Just to let you know so we can share that. Another interesting story is one particular individual who was in the figure skating community was supposed to be on that plane from Wichita to Washington, D.C., and he apparently went to the airport in Wichita, and they said he had his dog with him, and his dog was too big, and they turned him away. And look what happened. Instead, he would plan to drive to Washington. Some people end up being lucky. At the grace of God or at the last second, their direction changes. I feel really bad for everyone on that plane because you literally did not see this coming. It's horrible. When I first saw this in a plane crash and they said commercial, my gut, I mean, it's bad, but I was thinking 200 people on board or the 180 on board. But like we discussed last night, we were always hoping for a miracle that they would pull out a survivor. But as the night was going into the early morning hours, it became clear no survivors. No survivors at all. Yeah, so they have confirmed that the NTSB press conference will be at 2:45. That's what we'll show. We're loading up Nancy Kerrigan, so in the meantime, we can listen to Nancy Kerrigan. Remember her? There are some key officials speaking about this incident. Trump. They're saying Trump, according to CNN, CNN's take on Trump is he briefed reporters in the White House briefing room. We watched it. Appeared to blame a diversity push at the FAA without evidence. That's what CNN says. He promised to work very diligently in the days to come. And his administration is there to offer support. They say that J.D. Vance also stepped to the podium. This is coming from CNN's perspective. You know, a lot of people have a lot of opinions about CNN. Give me 1 second, Magnolia. We got that ready. But J.D. Vance said they're saying without evidence, the higher standards have been lowered at air traffic control. So it seems like they're honing in on the air traffic controller. And we'll see what happens with that. Now, we have this clip ready of Nancy Kerrigan. We're going to play this before this press conference. Check it out.
Members and alumni, Nancy Kerrigan. I don't think Nancy needs any introduction, nor does Dr. Tinley Albright, one of our longest serving members, I should say. Definitely not oldest member. And first Olympic champion for the United States in figure skating, coming up and celebrating her 70th anniversary of her win at Cortina. Her daughter, excuse my Boston accent, her daughter, Elin Schran, who worked with our coaches, with Vadim and Jenya and Spencer, and runs a great company called Joy Skate, which does a lot to diversify our sport. And Paul George, a longtime club member, national champion in the sport, and President Emeritus of the U.S. Figure Skating Foundation. Any questions we can answer for you?
Did you know the coaches personally throughout your career? And could you reflect on the loss, their style?
Well, first of all,
Do you want to step up a little bit?
Step up to the mic if you would,
we
please.
came here because we needed to be together. We're family, and it's a community, and the skaters, the people who were on that plane, they're our family too. And our community means so much to us. We're also here to encourage the skaters who have been aiming to reach the World Championships. It's important for them to know we're all together. I certainly don't have any answers. I really can't believe that it happened because I picture them right here. The coaches always stood at that entrance. The skaters just flew all over the ice, doing remarkable things, inspiring all of us. And it's to us, it's just terrible and it's sad. And we just feel we need to be together. That's why you see so many hugs today.
Emily and Paul, this is the second time for this call. I don't know if you remember from 1961. There's people and kind of what happens to bring it up.
Yes, there were really 22 of my friends on that plane in 1961 on their way to the World Championships. And I'm sure I would have gone there to cheer them on, but I was in my last year of medical school and couldn't go. And I remember years later, people looking at me very strangely when they were talking about that, and they thought, weren't you on that plane? And I wish the ones that were on that plane weren't. And I don't know how to handle this, and the last thing I would want to do would be a press conference, but we all felt we need to be here, and I'm glad to see you all here because that means you care and will help us all try to deal with this. And we're thinking and loving the family members who are going through such a terrible time right now. So thank you.
Thank you. Paul, did you have anything you wanted to add since you knew the 61 team as well?
Oh, would you mind stepping on the phone?
Sure. Please.
Like today, 1961 was a tragic moment. It was the day the music stopped. Very much like this. I think it made us more resolute, though, as we moved forward as skaters, young skaters. I was 19 at the time. It took time, but we came back, I think, stronger, better. This is a club of excellence. It has been for over 100 years. We have produced countless talented skaters. You have some right here in Nancy, in Tenley, and Elon. I think we will continue to do it. We, of course, today think of the families, think of the athletes, and that's as it should be.
What went through your mind when you heard about the crash?
It was a very vivid reminder of 1961. My wife tapped me on the shoulder at 6:30 and told me, much as my father had done 64 years ago at about the same time of day. Very vivid memories come back. As Tenley said, we lost a whole group of friends. We all grew up together. We skated together, trained together, even went to parties occasionally together.
So how do you process such a similar tragedy happening to people you care about in similar circumstances?
Well, I think as with anyone who has losses, is we first of all think and pray and hope for them and for their families. And then there'll come a time when the music will again be on and we will push forward, be more resolute, be more determined.
How does the club come back from this now?
I think we grieve, as we all are doing. I think a number of you have expressed similar feelings to us today. We will honor the athletes, honor the families, but I think we also will encourage people to come back and get back on the ice, get about their lives, be more focused if ever. We will survive.
Sir, can you tell us if these families have been a part of the club for a long time since the children were small?
I'll turn that to
Yes,
Doug.
easily several years. Max moved here in 2017 with his parents when they joined the club as coaches, so he's been here for 8 years. Coaching, we're here for 8 years. We wooed them away from a program in Connecticut to be part of our high performance Team USA building program. It was a great decision. Instrumental in so much of what they've done. Vadim and Jenya were developmental coaches, which means they took kids as they came into the sport, and their focus, very much the St. Petersburg method out of Russia, was to build kids from an early age with the proper discipline and techniques that would carry them through the sport forever. And they were very good at that. The Hahn family, we watched Gina just grow up here from just a tiny little tyke into this amazingly mature 13-year-old who you wouldn't even think was 13. A great performer, a great competitor, and off the ice, a great kid. You know, I think as we would say, or some circles would say, raised right. Just a really good kid, great parents. And we talk a lot about the athletes, but I think we're going to miss their moms as much. Just really good people.
What's the reaction to this tragedy, and how do you process it? Can you stick to the mic?
Yeah, much like everyone here has been saying, is not sure how to process it. Shoot, I'm sorry. Which is why I'm here. Many of you may know my husband's my agent, and he keeps getting calls to do interviews, and I thought that was weird. I didn't feel like it was right to be home and doing interviews for this. So I called Elin. I'm like, what are you doing? I think we just all need to go together. And she said, let me call my mom. And so we're like, okay, we'll meet you in an hour. And we just wanted to be here and be part of our community. I've never seen anyone love skating as much as these two, and that's why I think it hurts so much. And I mean, everything. Tenley's always here supporting the kids, and anytime I've been able to be here and watch them grow, the kids here really work hard. Their parents work hard to be here. But I feel for the athletes, the skaters, their families, but anyone that was on that plane, not just the skaters, because it's just such a tragic event. And we've been through tragedies before as Americans, as people, and we are strong. And I guess it's how we respond to it. And so my response was to be with people I care about and I love, and I needed support. So, so that's why I'm here. And I don't know, a little bit at a time. I think it's a shock. I wasn't woken up in the morning and saw it. I was watching like all night. So I probably look tired, but, and then when you find out, you know some of the people on the plane, it's even a bigger blow. We just wish them well, and like the families, the courage and the strength to make the next steps. I don't know how. You look at people go through tragedies and you wonder, how do they do it? I don't know, but we're so strong. Somehow we have a reservoir to dig from, and each one of them are strong enough to get through this somehow. It will take time, but look beside you, there's somebody that cares, and I don't know, tell people around you that you love them because you just never know. don't
Nancy,
forget to say it.
could you reflect on Vadim and Jenya, what kind of coaches they were, and did you work with them?
I never worked with them. I mean, we were at the Olympics together, but '94 I was kind of busy myself and sort of separated from a lot of what was going on. But I mean, I've seen them a lot of times here and there over the years, but everything you've heard of them, like maybe being a little tough, but with a smile on their face. And like anytime I walked in, oh, hi, it's so good to see you. It's like always welcoming and happy to see one another. And like, so just to walk in here and not see that is, I think, would be very strange for everybody that comes here, especially those that are here day in and day out. And it's going to be hard. And I always feel like, what am I doing? I don't come to the skating club all the time, but it was the only place I thought I should be right now. I did not expect this. It's Tenley. I'm not sure, but we just wanted to be here with each other and for Doug. We watched Doug's interview, and
that helped us.
It did help. Thank you. Yeah,
there are so many memories, and just having seen the skaters competing and knowing that Max is now, he did so well in the nationals. He's made the world team as an alternate. And then Spencer, who was in your ice show, could you tell us what you told me about
you had a
his
great
skating?
story.
My company does free outdoor shows around the city. Nancy's hosted and started many of them. And Spencer was in his first show with our company this past December in Kendall Square, Cambridge. And he'd never done a professional show before. It was a new experience for him. He was nervous. And then after the show ended, he came over and he was just beaming. This kid was so talented. He'd only started skating a few years ago, and he had all of his triples, and not just that, but this natural grace and beauty and understanding of ice and speed, and his positions were just so gorgeous. And he came to me and smiling ear to ear, saying, I get it now. I understand. And he started to discover this connection with the audience and that joy that he was giving to other people through his gift. And he said, please let me skate again with you next year. I had already reached out to people like Doug Webster, who is the artistic director of Ice Dance International, and said, you've got to keep your eye on this kid. You're going to want him for your company. He was just brilliant and so kind. And he was great backstage. That matters to me even more than the on-stage talent of these kids. And
we watched him here.
Yeah, I don't understand. I don't understand this. Just really praying for his family.
All of them.
For all of them. Yes, I do.
Definitely.
I've never seen somebody come to it so fast.
And so naturally.
So naturally.
Do you know how recently he had started?
I think it was 3 years ago. Mia, do you know Ben? 3 years ago.
That's unheard of.
I mean, these kids can make it look really easy when they're doing triple jumps and all of their triples. It's actually not very easy. You know, you don't just need talent. You need to have a lot of hard work to get there.
Grit.
And for him, and grit, thank you, and resilience. And for him to get there in 3 years, that's why I refer to him as a phenom.
What about Gina? Big potential. She's 13.
Oh yeah. Oh, she was in it to win it, and she was in it to win it in, like, in a Tenley way, full of grace, a serious competitor, but so nice about it, and so supportive of her fellow competitors. Just a delight, but for a little 13-year-old, just full of grace. And I want to say one other thing about Vadim and Jenya, because I refer to them as being strict, and I think what I really mean to say, they had high standards, because they were incredibly kind. They were so kind, but they had high standards. And the combination really worked with their kids because they felt the support, but they also knew where the bar was. And I have to say, for me as CEO here, I could not walk into this arena, see them for the first time that day, and for them not to come over, shake my hand, and thank me for the opportunity to be here, which you don't always see. Just very grateful and generous with their feedback. I mean, we can probably all speak to that. Well, maybe you're probably too young. But I grew up in the shadow of that. So the crash had happened before I was born, but my mom had me skating at a very early age. And even as a little 4-year-old, as a little 3-year-old, I knew something terrible had happened. Folks weren't talking about it, but there was a pall. There was like this black energy in the arena at the old facility at 1240 Soldiers Field Road. And as a little kid, it was like the terrible awful that you couldn't talk about. It was that devastating. And I just knew not to ask about it, but I could viscerally feel it. I think we'll see how we move forward here. The fact that we have no skaters on the ice right now and no coaches is not because we asked them not to come. I think they're staying away, they're just processing this, and they're taking a break. But I think Nancy and Tenley and Elin and Paul coming to join us today and not knowing there would be media here, but just to be part of the fabric of our community over the decades speaks a lot to why skating is such a special and in many ways unique sport, a really strong sport.
I will attest to that, going through something tragic, not like this, but myself, that the communities stood behind me, and I'm grateful for that. And so it's my turn now to hopefully be here. I'm not sure what it is to do. Maybe get someone a cup of coffee, but a hug, I'm here for hugs. I don't know. It's just, I want to be able to give back what I feel like I got.
Nancy, so many people see figure skating as hyper-competitive. Can you see other figure skaters other than competitors? Obviously today, even though perhaps you didn't personally know these people, you feel a connection. So skaters just don't see each other as somebody else to beat on the ice, do they?
But I think there's like a camaraderie. We spend a lot of time focused on yourself or your team if you're a para dance, but you're in the cold, not so much here, but a lot, hour after hour. So there is like this, you don't have to know everybody to feel that connection. We've been through the same thing, that training, that rigorous schedule of falling over and over and somehow picking yourself back up, which is like the main lesson I think learned in skating is you get back up. Keep on trying, and even when it's hard, you get back up. Even when you're crying, hurt, pain, you get back up and move forward. It's not easy, but that's what we all have to do now together.
Can you reflect on what this loss means for the sport, too? To lose coaches like that, to lose just up-and-comers like that, what that means for the sport.
Does anybody want to start on that one?
Is there more than just here?
I would say, first of all, that the sport will rebound. It always hurts to lose coaches of the talent we lost. In 1961, the same thing happened. We lost some very, very outstanding coaches, but coaches came up and worked harder. To Nancy's point, Nancy went through a very tough time. She had great resolve in 1994 and came back. Tenley, around her Olympic time, as you may recall, had an injury, if I recall correctly, Tenley, but she fought back. Skaters are resolute. The other thing I would say is that we're part of a larger sports community. I've heard today from the president of USA Hockey, the executive director of USA Hockey. I've heard from countless people in other sports. We band together. We're a family, not only of figure skaters, but of sports men and women. So I think we will very much rebound, and we'll get some coaches going.
Nancy, you spoke about the coaches a little bit. Are there others that were lost that you would like to share anything about it that you knew personally?
No, I don't know.
Not of your generation,
Not,
really.
yeah, no. There obviously were more, I think, on the plane that weren't from here, but other skaters. So our community's not that, it's pretty small. I think everyone's talked to people in different parts of like Washington and Virginia, and it's not just here that's hurting, and it's not just in these specific places. Every rink that has skating has some, I'm sure, some feeling towards this. It's tragic. But I can't give it, I don't know. I think.
Other questions?
This was a tragic loss of life, and you mentioned the community is pretty small. So how do you explain the depth of loss?
We're feeling it.
Well, the community is small. I mean, we have 1,100 members here at the Skating Club of Boston. I think U.S. Figure Skating has 100,000 members. So it's small and it's tight-knit, but it's also very large. I think what makes it feel small is we're so cohesive. And for Nancy's point, and I think Tenley's as well, what you experience at an ice facility here in Boston can be so similar to what you experience in Los Angeles and elsewhere, that there's a common denominator to it. So folks feel this and can relate to this. They can relate to having young kids in their own facility, whether it's here in Boston or Northern Virginia or DC or elsewhere in the country. And I think that's what really makes it so small and tight-knit. Other questions?
Doug, is this a time of day when you normally would see skaters out here training?
This would be packed. Packed. What time is it?
1:30.
Oh.
In an hour, it would be packed.
But there would be kids.
But we would still have kids
Always.
here. We'd have Team USA kids here that have already, they're past high school. They can train at any time of day. Those coaches would be here. Four Continents Championship, an international event that Max is supposed to go to, is coming up. The World Championships are coming up. The Junior World Championships are coming up. We have 2 skaters going to the Junior World Championships. We have the current and just very recently minted U.S. pair champions who train here and are members here, who are going to the World Championships at TD Garden at the end of March. So there would normally be a lot of training here. Folks have taken a break. Misha and Elisa are with Max. They're training mates. They're friends. And all friends with the Hans and the Lanes, too. So, yes, this would normally be crowded.
When do you plan to see people back out on the ice?
I don't know. I think when they're comfortable coming back on the ice.
And what is your message to your community of 1,100 members? You said, what is it that you told the families and the members?
I was just working on a communication with them right before coming out here, that it's tragic, that we all feel it. We can't explain it. We're in this together. We always support each other together. It's part of the fabric of who we are, both at the Skating Club of Boston and in our skating community. Offer them opportunities to come in and grieve together, both tomorrow, like actually this evening and tomorrow. And so we'll put that out there and see how our members respond. I can tell they're feeling things. I think I mentioned earlier, I just can't get to all the texts and emails that I've been getting. And it's heartwarming, and I feel bad that I'm not responding as quickly as I might like, but it really does feel good to know that so many people from around the world and around this country really care. And they care about this club, but they care about the sport, and they care about the athletes. And that's really why we're a tight-knit community.
Could I just say that I think what we'll find is that the skaters will come to the ice and skate as part of the healing, because when you skate, it's an expression, and I think that it will help them to be together on the ice.
Agreed.
Yeah, and that's what I was just thinking, similar, that we all grieve differently, and I just urge them all to be patient with each other, because someone might want to get out there and just practice like it was last week, and someone else might feel like that's not appropriate, but we all grieve differently and at different times and in different ways, and we have we just have to be accepting, like, that's how they're dealing with it. They just have to go, and somebody else might not be able to step back on the ice for a little while, and that's okay too. Like, just be patient with one another and be there to support one another, whichever way they choose to deal.
And I think for me, as the leader of this organization, you know, it's my job to make sure our ice is occupied and is at capacity. But I have to tell you that this ice being empty and this arena having gone silent, it makes me feel good. It makes me feel very fitting that it's not business as usual here. So I'm glad to see the facility empty. It's almost eerie, but I think it's fitting, and I think it's respectful.
What was it like coming back and being so quiet and, you know, reeling with loss?
I skated and trained at the old facility, not here. It was very different than this. But it's, so I didn't come back and skate here, but God, but I said the same thing as Doug just said when I walked in, and it was kind of like, just, we went upstairs and it was silent. It was eerie. It just is a little strange to be in, and in this ice rink. Other ice rinks, there's not figure skating all day, and here there's figure skating, and there's always music, and we perform to music. It's emotional, and sometimes that may make it harder for some because you hear the music and you start emoting, and it can just pull out all these feelings, and so it could be challenging to get back out there. That's okay. Just a little at a time, and just do what we can and be there. As I say, we just have to be there for one another. But I think to be here, I don't come here that often, and I just didn't know what else to do. So I just thought I needed to be with some friends. Paul and I have been through a lot together, and Tenley and I lately more and more. So yeah, it just, I've always felt support and encouraged, and I walked in, I saw Anne, and she's just, you know, there were lots of hugging, and I think I needed that, so thanks for having me. I said, I hope I didn't throw a wrench in, just like, we're showing up, but we just all needed to be here with you. Thanks.
Other questions? Thank you, folks. Again, we appreciate your interest and support.
Thank you.
I have a list of all the names and spellings. So.
All right. Nancy Kerrigan. Magnolia's going to be joining us into the chat, share some of these victims. A couple of the pilots been identified now. And we got the NTSB coming forward in about 8 minutes for a press conference. What you got, Magnolia?
So we have a few more of the victims have been identified. We talked about earlier today, Spencer Lane. He's in the top right here. He's a figure skater. The other skater is here, bottom second from the left, Gina Hinn. She's only 13 years old. Her and her mother were both on the plane. So the top left is one of the pilots, and the bottom left is the other pilot, the captain. They were identified by, I believe, American Airlines. So the first captain in the top left, his name is Samuel Lilly. And he was newly engaged, actually, and he was only a few months away from being promoted to captain. He's 29 years old. And then the other down here in the bottom left is Jonathan Campos. He was the captain, the pilot. He is from Florida or New York originally, grew up in Florida. He was certified as a flight instructor back in 2017 and as a commercial airline pilot in 2018. Now we have in the middle up here on the top, we have the two flight attendants. So the man's name is Ian Epstein, and
I think your volume went out, Magnolia. Is your volume there? Here, I'm going to come back out and come back in.
Oh, I hear you. I hear you now.
Yeah, well, I don't know what was going on with the volume.
Yeah, that was weird. So the other one here we have, so if people remember last night, we were going over some of the initial reports that were coming out, and one video we shared was from a husband whose wife was on board, and she had texted him to say that they were about to land, and that was the last message that he got from her. And she's pictured here in the bottom right. Her name is Asra Hussein. She's 26 years old. She actually is the one I mentioned before, was afraid to fly. As a matter of fact, she always had anxiety flying. So, and then again, down here on the bottom, second from the right, we have the former world champion pair skaters, Shiskova and Vadim Namov, and they were coaches there at the Boston Skating Center where we just saw the press conference with Nancy Kerrigan. So that is Nancy Kerrigan's home ice rink. The figure skating world is a small world. It's a very tight-knit community. So they pretty much, people in the United States figure skating world, they pretty much all know each other. And a lot of these people go back decades in the sport, which was one of the things that stood out during that press conference. A couple of the people who spoke actually were around for the plane crash in 1961, and they spoke about going through that experience, and then now this again. So it's impossible to believe that this could happen twice in the same sport.
Yeah, it's horrible. The way they described it, looks like they lost a lot of really talented and seasoned coaches.
Yes.
I mean, how do you replace that? I mean, if this is an industry, it looks like it's a very tight-knit community with this figure skating. And these, coaches are probably the best of the best. They're like the top coaches in the world in this particular industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the other thing is, like, with skaters and coaches, you really, it's difficult because not every skater and every coach necessarily works well together or meshes well together. So if you're a figure skater at the top of your game, you're really relying on that relationship with your coach. So it'll be very difficult to go through that, to lose your coach. We don't know all the names of the people that were lost so far. I think it's just been around these 8 people that have been named. So the details are coming out slowly.
Yeah, press conference is almost underway. We're just waiting for that. That's why we came on to get an update. Major investigation. We could actually take us now. Yeah. So NTSB, what will they say? I mean, it's probably too early even to come with any conclusion. They're just going to pretty much say they have to evaluate the black boxes and launch their investigation. How long that takes? Is there a time? Didn't they indicate there would be months?
Yeah, I mean, usually it takes at least several months to do one of these investigations.
Yeah, but listening to the victims' families and friends of victims and everything like that, it's just horrible. It's a horrible how just with the blink of the eye, large amounts of people can just die because of a crash. Like, you're all in there on a plane, and it's just horrible. I really hope that no one suffered. Because
let me get the names again, because I think a couple people said they missed it. So I'll just throw this up here really quick. So again, this up here in the top left is Samuel Lilly. He was the first officer. So he was one of the pilots on the American Airlines flight. And then right below him is Jonathan Campos. He's the captain. He's the pilot. Top two in the center are the flight attendants, Denisha Elder and Ian Epstein, aka Denisha Brown. And then we have the skaters that we talked about before.
Back at the scene, NTSB. Yeah, there was, again, I talked about another guy. There was a kid. His name was John Maravilla. And he was the kid that actually went to the young man, went to the board and was denied because they said his dog was too big.
Right.
And he didn't get on that plane.
Yeah, he decided to drive instead. So that's obviously got to be a unspeakable feeling.
Yeah. So we're waiting for this press conference here. It's supposed to start any minute. In the meantime, there are some other things going on, some cabinet positions getting grilled today. Kind of looking at that. We're still covering our border stuff. We got some stuff coming out on that aspect. But man, this horrible. I'm not thinking twice about flying. I'll get on a plane right now. No hesitation. But in 1961, there was a crash that killed 18 members of the U.S. figure skating world team. I guess they were on the way to the Prague. Also, it's just being reported more bodies have been recovered from the crash site. And we're saying bodies not alive, bodies, it's a recovery, not a rescue anymore. Wreckage is still submerged in the Potomac River. Dive teams are out there.
Yeah, one of the ones that's really, really sad too is the Russian married couple that were a former pair that competed and won the world championship. Their son, Maxim, he did not get on the plane. And so he survived this. He just competed at the championships last week. They just finished the nationals on the 26th. So that competition ran from the 24th to the 26th. He placed fourth. You know, he was brought up in this world with his parents being greats in their own right. And so that's got to be really difficult for him moving forward too. It's just so sad.
His name was Maxim?
Maxim Naumov. He did not get on the plane.
There you go. Tanya Harding, she actually gave a subsequent tweet, didn't she, about, praying. She's, she went on, when I say Tanya Harding, because, she went on Twitter for the first time yesterday. And then this accident happened. A lot of people are trying to say that's fishy, that's a coincidence. I just think it is coincidence. For sure. But she pretty much said she followed up with a tweet today. The events that took place last night in Washington are absolutely devastating. I'm being told that several professional figure skaters were aboard the flight as well. Sending my loves and prayers to all the victims. Wow, she got 20,000 followers in just one day. 2 ex-champion, 2 ex-Olympian.
Yeah, the timing of Tanya Harding resurfacing is so bizarre. It's like almost too bizarre for words.
Yeah, and I'm sure she doesn't want to be part of this story at all because she's not connected in any way. But she just happened to tweet out the same time that this happened, like getting on Twitter, which was like, wow. But we are waiting. NTSB, they're late, 5 minutes late. We originally thought it was 2 o'clock, so when we realized it wasn't 2, we started sharing additional information. Is there anything else to share while we wait for NTSB, Magnolia?
I haven't heard anything new. I pulled up. I kind of went through the victims that so far that we know. But again, there are more people associated with the skating team that we don't know yet. Here's that Tanya Harding tweet if anyone is interested. So yeah, very strange. She resurfaced yesterday midday. She posted a video on Twitter saying, "Hello, here I am. I'm on Twitter now." And then a few hours later, this plane crash happened. So a lot of people are like, huh? The timing is wild.
Camera looks like it's a little wobbly here. Appears like they're going to get started very quickly. I just saw somebody come over a little bit ago, and I guess they did that maybe 5-minute warning or testing. Sometimes they give the media a heads up. I'm looking at another angle too. There's nobody in there, but they got they're literally, I think they're ready to come out now. Like literally yep. I think they're coming out now. Here we go, folks.
Thank you for joining us. My name is Jennifer Harmondy, and I'm the chairwoman of the National Transportation Safety Board. The National Transportation Safety Board is an independent federal agency that's charged by Congress with investigating every civil aviation and serious accident and serious incident in the United States and significant events in other modes of transportation. I want to start by expressing our deepest condolences, our sympathies on behalf of the entire board for those who lost loved ones in this terrible tragedy. Our thoughts, our prayers are with you. Entire communities were affected, and we are thinking of you. With me today is Bryce Banning. Bryce is a senior aircraft accident investigator with the National Transportation Safety Board. He's also going to serve as our investigator in charge of this investigation. Also with me today is the entire board. We have Todd Inman, member Todd Inman. Todd is going to serve as the board member on scene, the spokesperson for this investigation. All of the board members will be here. We have Vice Chairman Alvin Brown, member Mike Graham, who lived in Wichita for 20 years, and we also have member Tom Chapman. The NTSB's headquarters is just a mile from here. And so we are all here because this is an all-hands on-deck event. And we're here to assure the American people that we are going to leave no stone unturned in this investigation. We are going to conduct a thorough investigation of this entire tragedy, looking at the facts. Now, with that, I want to level set. When we go to the scene, and we were here last night, we allow the responders to do their important safety mission, which in this case was search and rescue and recovery. We stand back to allow them to do their important safety mission. And so this for us is our first full day on scene with our entire crew coming together. We have about nearly 50 people on scene, and in addition to our resources back at headquarters in our labs and throughout the agency. So with that said, we are not going to get into specific facts in this press conference. I want to level set here. We're going to get into our investigative process. As we are able to confirm factual information, we will provide that. I do want to say this is a whole of government effort. I was able to brief, along with others, the President of the United States and the Vice President this afternoon. I want to thank them for their leadership, for their tremendous support of the NTSB, for our investigators, and for the responders that are on scene doing an important mission. I also want to thank Secretary Sean Duffy, who I was communicating with early on after we first got word of this tragedy. We've been working together throughout the day, along with his team at the DOT and within FAA. I also want to thank Secretary Pete Hegseth, who was also integral in working with us today. Chris Rochelot, the acting administrator of the Federal Aviation Administration. We've heard from many members of Congress on both sides of the aisle. And so I will say this is a tremendous, one more time, whole of government effort. I also want to take a moment and thank the many, many responders that have been on scene. It has been an incredible effort. And I will have a full list that I will provide, that we will provide tomorrow, but I do want to thank them for all their work. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Member Inman for additional remarks.
So today is our first full day on scene. Our investigative team will be on scene as long as it takes in order to obtain all of the perishable evidence and all the fact finding that is needed to bring us to a conclusion of probable cause. Our mission is to understand not just what happened, but why it happened, and to recommend changes to prevent it from happening again. Since we're just beginning our investigation, we don't have a great deal of information to share right now. We will keep you informed by giving regular updates as we learn more. Our intention is to have a preliminary report within 30 days, and the final report will be issued once we've completed all of our fact-finding and investigation. Now, we will not be determining the probable cause of the accident while we're here on scene, nor will we speculate about what may have caused this accident. Today, we will be going and having an organizational meeting and establishing our parties to our investigation. We currently have the following parties that are already identified: PSA Airlines, GE Aerospace, Sikorsky, FAA, NACTA, which represents the air traffic controllers, ALPA, which represents the pilots, Army, AFA, which represents the flight attendants. The Transportation Safety Board of Canada will be an accredited representative under Annex 13 of ICAO. They will be supplemented by MHIRG as a technical advisor. They were previously known as Bombardier, sorry. The NTSB offers this party status to those companies, government agencies, and associations that have employees, activities, or equipment involved in the accident. We offer that because they will provide technical expertise and relevant information supporting the development of the best possible factual record. Once they join this investigation, they are not permitted to release documents or talk publicly about the investigation without the consent of the NTSB. So I want to stress this It is only the NTSB that will provide information related to this investigation, with one exception. Regarding the fatalities that occurred, that notification will be handled by the DC medical examiner. We will not be discussing fatalities or names. That will be handled by them as the proper authority. So we want to talk a little bit about our process. We will analyze the facts and determine the probable cause of the accident and then issue a report of those determinations. I also want to talk a little bit about some additional people that are here with us, and they're very important to us, and that is our family assistance group. Later today, we will be briefing the families. We normally try to do this before a media event, but in this case, they're still arriving. Our family assistance specialists are already working closely with local officials and others to help assist them in their efforts to support everyone that's affected by this accident. And let me just reiterate what the chair said. A loss of life in an aviation accident is very unusual in the United States, and our heartfelt sorrow goes out to everyone that's affected. It affects us, it affects everyone around us. There are a lot of people hurting today. We will help find out what happened. We will do it factually, and we will do it accurately. As part of this, we are going to be standing up some specific working groups. Those working groups will be operations. They will be looking at the history of the accident flight and crew members' duties for as many days before the crash as appears relevant. We'll be forming a structures group, which will be the documentation of the airframe wreckage and the accident scene, including calculation of impact angles to help determine the plane's pre-impact course and altitude. We'll have a power plants group. They will do the examination of the engines and the engine accessories. We'll have a systems group. They will study the components of the plane's hydraulic, electrical, pneumatic, and associated systems, together with the instruments and elements of the flight control system. We'll have an air traffic control group. They will do reconstruction and review of air traffic control systems provided to and including acquisition of pertinent flight track surveillance information, what you might typically think of as radar or ADSB, along with controller pilot communications. We will also have a survival factors group. They will be doing the documentation of impact, forces and injuries, community emergency planning, and all crash and fire rescue efforts. Also, due to the unique nature of this crash, we will be having a helicopter group as well. Lastly, we will have a human performance group, and this will not be its own group. It will actually be a part of the operations, air traffic control, and helicopter groups. They will study the crew performance and all before the accident factors that might be involved in human error, including fatigue, medication, medical histories, training, workload, equipment design, and work environment. Now we're going to take a few questions, but I will again stress, we don't have a lot of information now. We will continue to gather that. We will try to release it as we can, but we will only talk about the facts of the case that we know right now. I'm going to ask, we'll call on a few people. I'm going to ask that you state your name and affiliation.
James Matthews from Sky News. So we've heard from President Trump today talking about DEI hiring policies within the FAA and associating that with the cause of this accident. What do you say to that?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't hear the remarks. I was briefing House and Senate members, but I believe, Chair, would you like to take them?
As part of any investigation, we look at the human, the machine, and the environment. So we will look at all the humans that were involved in this accident. Again, we will look at the aircraft, we will look at the helicopter, we will look at the environment in which they were operating in. That is standard in any part of our investigation. I'll turn it back.
Chair, can I ask you, has the flight data recorder been recovered yet? And what is the difficulty in a water disaster like this, which presents a very difficult environment for your investigators and the people out on the water?
Well, the question was on the flight data recorders. And we have not recovered the flight data recorders yet. We know they're there. They are underwater. This is not unusual for the NTSB. We have many times recovered flight data recorders in water. We have our lab right here that is about a mile from the NTSB, so it's not unusual. And once we get those, we'll be able to get those read and information from them to be able to provide further information to you. I'm going to turn it back over to member Inman.
Sir.
With CBS News, earlier today, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said a mistake was made last night. Based off of you all's initial investigations and preliminary findings, have you all been able to tell whether this was human error or mechanical failure?
The question was, is there been human error or mechanical failure? We don't know what we know just yet. We do not know enough facts to be able to rule in or out human factor, mechanical factors. That is part of the NTSB investigative process, and where all of these groups will come together. It's one of the reasons why the NTSB is known as the gold standard. We will take the time that's necessary, but I'd also like to reiterate, if we find something that is a significant issue that warrants immediate action, we will not hesitate to make those recommendations and make them public. We have a good track record on that, and we want to continue doing so. Sir.
Hello, Sir. Tom Costello with NBC News. Does it hurt your investigative process, maybe for the chairman, does it hurt your investigative process to have the president already suggesting possible causes here as you try to keep an open mind and begin this investigation?
Tom, with all due respect, I think the press also likes to state what probable cause is before we get to the probable cause. So what I'm going to say is you need to give us time. You need to give NTSB, it's not that we don't have information. We do have information. We have data. We have substantial amounts of information. We need to verify information. We need to take our time to make sure it is accurate. That's best for you. That's important for the families. It's important for legislators who are seeking answers to try to figure out what they're going to do about this. And so it will take time. We do have a lot of information, but we need some time to verify that.
Yeah, Member Chase Williams with Fox Business. I'm wondering about the conditions in the tower last night. Were there any performance issues in the past with any of these controllers? Anything of that?
Question is about controllers. As I said, we are just now forming the groups. The controllers do have union representation, which they are entitled to. They'll be working with our party system and our party groups. They'll be conducting interviews. Those interviews will need to be analyzed, transcribed, and other team members will need to look over it. It'll be a long process, but we will go through the entire history.
Sure. So the question was about my briefing for the president and the vice president. As is standard, we offer briefings on our process and what we know. And this was a briefing with the president and vice president and with Secretary Duffy and Secretary Hegseth and also the acting administrator of the FAA. There was discussion on what we know so far and our process, and that was about it.
Madam Chairwoman, Stephanie Ramos with ABC News. Similar to Tom Costello's question, the president has stated what may have caused the crash, stating common sense. Does that affect your progress at all at this early stage?
Yeah, so the NTSB, we conduct an important safety mission where we take a very careful approach. I'm sorry, the question was on speculating during investigations, which is we often hear about. What I will say is we look at facts on our investigation, and that will take some time. And at some point, we'll be able to provide that factual information, as Member Inman said, and provide that hopefully tomorrow.
Hang on a second. Dave.
Jefferson from Reuters. Have you been able to retrieve the black boxes from the helicopter? Has the military decided whether they're going to read those to the NTSB? And what about the ATC tapes?
So the question was about black boxes, which are referred to as black boxes, which are typically orange. We have not recovered any of the boxes involved yet. We feel comfortable and confident that we will be able to. Right now, recovery of life is probably most important in those that were involved. I mean, there are still ongoing recovery efforts involving the fatalities involved, along with some debris is coming out as well. We will make sure that that perishable evidence is maintained. We have a great process for that. We will probably have more than one black box, so to speak. It's our understanding that the Sikorsky helicopter is equipped with some form of recording devices, and those will be read either by the DoD or by us. We have a good starting relationship with them, and we've already made agreements in order to be able to do that. So I feel comfortable in what we're going to be doing. The other question was about air traffic control. We received a very large package of information from the FAA at about 3 a.m., I believe, this morning. That is still being reviewed and analyzed. I would say there's a lot more information that usually comes in that than what you may find online and people might speculate about. And that is part of that overall process where we take the time to get the information correct and to make sure all the parties are engaged and involved and can fact check that information. One.
From CNN. Can you tell me if the NTSB has reviewed this FAA internal report that has been cited by the New York Times indicating that the controller that was on duty at the time of the crash was doing a job that's usually done by two people?
We have not reviewed any specific reports about the controllers at this time, at least from the leadership team. Our investigators are continuing to pull all that information, their personnel records, their files, where they were at, whether they were fatigued. All that information will be part of that investigative process. But right now, we can't speculate on anything that may have been reported in the media until we get the opportunity to validate and understand how it impacts the investigation. We're going to take just a few more questions. Sir? So the question is about the families, and many of those families are still en route. Some are still being notified from both the military and from the commercial crash. There is a family assistance facility that's being stood up by American and PSA Airlines in Bethesda, Maryland. They've already been working on that, standing it up. Our team from our disaster assistance team has also been coordinating with them. We plan on briefing them. It is customary that at some point, if the families wish to go to part of the accident site, that we would arrange such a thing, but it will only be when we know that it's safe, we have the correct perishable evidence, and we can do it in the proper modesty that should be for those family members. It will be a little bit of a process, but it will take some time.
Sir, to follow up on the air traffic control.
No. Sir, or are you?
I know that Marielle Carvin with DC News now. We've heard from some witnesses that they saw people were able to come down the slides of the plane. Has there been any indication that people made it off the plane to take it?
Well, again, we will not speak to the fatalities. The DC medical examiner will, but I think the DC fire chief this morning very succinctly said correctly that we believe there are no survivors.
What's their off the plane? Like, did they even get out of the plane?
Last question.
So hang on one second. Right now, we're going through the debris fields. Nothing we've seen would indicate that maybe slides or chutes were deployed. It was a very quick, rapid impact, but we've seen nothing in that regard so far from the evidence we have, but we still need to verify all of that information. One more question? Go ahead.
Jeff Cook, ABC News. What do you know about the altitude of the helicopter at the moment of impact? And can you talk about the procedure for such helicopters in that area?
The question was about the helicopter procedures. And in DC, it's kind of a unique environment. We've been getting briefed more and more by the FAA. I'm not an air traffic control specialist, but they're actually helicopter zones, if you will, or tracks. And this one was transiting, I believe, from track 1 to 4 as part of their normal procedure. If you live in DC, you see a lot of helicopters going down into this area. So there's a very well-defined system in that regard. As far as altitude, until we get the additional information, we can't validate or basically corroborate any of that until we get more of the electronic data and the data that's on the plane. I do want to clarify one question that also came about cell phones. You know, in today's age and time, a lot of electronics and other devices do contain a lot of different information. We've found on a number of our accidents that we actually are notified through a smartphone that may sense that. As part of our process, we will obviously treat all of the effects of the deceased with dignity. We are already starting to pull that information together. If we feel that it's necessary to find or pull some of that information, we will work with the families and make sure we do it in a manner that's respectful for them and their privacy. But right now, we don't have any plans specifically on that amount, on that area until we need to. Thank you very much.
All right. NTSB. NTSB. Press conference is over. Investigation underway. They have not retrieved the black boxes, as we reported earlier. 4 bodies have been found. No survivors. No survivors. The NTSB said they will brief victims. I don't know. I'm splitting the screen here. Magnolia's going to come back in. NTSB said they will brief victims' families later on today. Because as a victim family, you would want answers. I mean, if you were on a plane that crashed, wouldn't you ask for answers too? You would want answers. Sometimes these victims' families don't get answers. Now, this right here, the pilot and some of the crew on the plane. Hello, Magnolia.
These are the 2 pilots and the 2 flight attendants that were on the American Airlines flight.
60 on 4 personnel plus 3 on the chopper for a grand total of 67. 67 lost souls. Anything you'd like to add out of that press conference, or anything you would like to put out there, Magnolia?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't really give any real updates. Again, it was basically just saying this crash happened and we're investigating, and give us time before we can answer your questions. That's kind of how it went. I don't think we really learned anything new from that presser. Just, you know, they want to have FaceTime with the cameras and let people know that they're investigating, they're working hard with other agencies to try to figure out what happened here. So
yeah, we'll just keep people updated on what, put out there. If there's any bombshell information, like if it switches away from maybe the accidental or something we learn or uncover or anything like that, we will continue to come back. But that's pretty much the latest update. They're still continuing to be out there in the Potomac River, cold upper 30s in the water. And we'll see if they find these black boxes and the information gets released, or and learn more about this.
Mm-hmm.
All right, folks, we're signing off. JLR Magnolia Investigates. Thanks for watching this segment. We listen to Nancy Kerrigan, NTSB, Trump, or anyone else gives a press conference. We'll be back for sure. We got our eyes on this case, along with other cases. We cover boots on the ground, breaking news, true crime, 24/7, 365. Until next time, everyone, see you later. Magnolia and JLR Investigates.